It started with a missing leaf, a botched patch job, and a last-minute decision to start again. In this video, I'm going to show you how I actually design my block prints and what it took to create my very first print for my new print club called Tiny Treasures Press. When I sat down to design the first print in my new monthly print subscription, I knew it had to feel like a starting point. Something small but meaningful. So naturally, I landed on a snail. I have realized lately that there are a lot of snails in my life. I love their sweetness. I love their spiraling shells. I love the way snails move through the world without rushing. Aspirational. They're just steady and intentional, which honestly is exactly the pace I would love to have for this project. So I gathered some visual inspiration from my books, from Pinterest, from the world, and started blocking out my idea inside of Procreate. I wanted to surround the snail with ferns and leaves that gave the composition a quiet, kind of tucked-in feel, like it had just nestled in and made itself a home. When I do these kinds of drawings in Procreate, I try to make sure that they're going to transfer to the block print medium. So that means I keep the elements separated by these kinds of lines, and I spend a lot of time refining the little details, making sure that the shapes had the right balance between simple and satisfying to carve. Once I was happy with the sketch, I transferred the design to my carving block. And I like to do this by printing out my sketch, tracing it on a little light table I have. And I love this process because it's meditative and it lets me really look at all of the parts of my design. And then once that's all ready to go, I flip it over, put it onto my block, and transfer. This is always one of my favorite parts of the process. There's something about carving away what doesn't belong to reveal the image underneath. But even with all that meditative energy, things don't always go to plan. And this time, they definitely didn't. So there I was, carving away, feeling pretty good about how it was going, when I accidentally sliced off an entire leaf. Just gone. 1 second it was there, and the next, nope. I tried to fix it. I watched a few YouTube videos about how to fix something like this, and so I cut out a small section of the block, patched in a new piece, and attempted to recarve the missing leaf like nothing had ever happened. And for a moment, I thought it might work. But then the block wasn't sitting flat, there were gaps where I didn't want them to be, and I just started to think, this isn't going to work. I even spent a good 30 minutes trying to force it to work, and then remembered something I've learned, especially with block printing. Sometimes the best fix is starting over. So I started carving the whole thing again. And you know what? The second version came out even better. The lines are more confident, the design felt more balanced. I actually liked it more. So sometimes mistakes force you to slow down and see the work more clearly, which feels pretty on brand for a print about a snail. So once the second block was carved, I inked it up and did a test print, and immediately I felt that little thrill. You know the one, that deep exhale when something finally clicks into place. This print feels like the perfect start to this new series. Not just because I love the snail as a symbol of slow living and spiralic paths, but because the print was a spiral. I had to circle back, I had to recarve, I had to rethink, I had to take the long way around. And I think that's a pretty honest reflection of the creative process most of the time. It's not always linear, and it rarely goes exactly as planned. But if you stick with it, you usually end up somewhere better than where you started. So this print is the first in a new chapter for me, my Tiny Treasures Press Print of the Month Club. Every month, I'll be designing and hand printing a new limited edition block print, all inspired by the seasons, nature, and the beautiful slowness of handmade art. If you want to collect them and support this kind of slow creative work, or just get a little surprise in your mailbox each month, you can join using the link below. I would love to send you one. Snail mail and all. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for being here. And if you're starting something of your own, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, you are in good company.